All right, we're going early. Well, 2 minutes is not early. Um, so let's talk about what today's show is about. This is our second to last consulting show on how to start your own consulting firm. We designed this for people that were thinking about making a career change. So, what's the roadmap? How do you build a consulting firm? And we're investigating perhaps franchising the process because we've had a lot of success. We've built a lot of companies this way. On the other hand, we thought we'd at least do this series. If you don't want to buy a franchise, we'll show you how to do it this way. All right. So, and with that, this is the last show. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be pulling all the materials together. Now, I did not hot link them in the show notes, so you won't be able to go back. But if you go into any of the series, and the series is CIB, and as creating an improvement business. Now, we added consulting to that because as we discussed it, I think it's more than consulting. It's consulting and coaching and a little training. I don't see there's a lot of difference between the three of them. A lot of people do. I don't particularly do. And since it's my show, what I think matters. So that's where we're going to go with it. But the other part of it is if we called it an improvement show, then people would be going, well, is it home improvement or what? And it definitely not. All right. So we've got about 40 seconds before we move over into the time zone. We got about a 2.5 minute buffer for music and slots. And if you're not familiar with radio lingo, spots are the things that I'm doing. Excuse me, slots are the things that I'm doing, and spots are promotions, advertising, etc., and as well as your bumper music. So that's what we got going on. All right, so I'll give everybody the same information here when we start. But if you've got any comments, go ahead and put them in the right below in the comment area. I can't promise that I'm going to be able to get to it as we're talking because I kind of like to be in the moment and not distracted. So I'm talking to you. I'm on the air. That's what I want, and what I don't want is, you start fumbling around. That's the other reason that we're not taking phone calls. One of the challenges of internet radio is number one, you don't have a phone number you can call because somebody from Australia is not going to be calling a U.S. exchange, or somebody from Nigeria or from Bangalore, India. And so we use Zoom typically, even though we're on StreamYard right now. We use Zoom typically for that particular service. All right, so we're down to a minute and a half, and I don't know what else to say other than I'll have a little drink of coffee. Keeps my voice very deep and raspy. Okay. All right. So I don't know about you, but if you're having a fun work day, so are we. Things around this place go exceedingly fast, and you talk about dog or cat years. A year here is 7 years, and we are coming up to our second anniversary. Come January, we will be a company for 2 years, and come April of next year, we will be on the air for 2 years. Unbelievable. Gee, I don't know what else to say. I have some people watching me in there, and they say they're cracking up. Well, I am not known for my sense of humor. I have a very sarcastic sense of humor, which is normally not really appreciated. So I keep it to myself, except, of course, over maybe a glass of scotch or good Irish whiskey. It reminds me when I played football in high school, and or even in college when I was playing baseball, and you've warmed up, you're the pitcher, and you're waiting, and I got the national anthem, and I got this, and I got that. Like, oh, come on, let's get this thing going. Let's slap some pads, man. All right. Oh yeah, we're down to it. I get to start. I get to talk about one of my favorite subjects. All right, here we go. Mixing board looks good. Everything is fine, and I'll do to you what would happen if I was in a studio looking through the glass at the studio engineer. What would I get? A three, two, and of course we don't use this finger. Welcome to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. I'm the host for today's show, and I'm excited about today's show. I'm excited about all the shows I get to do on the air, but this one is near and dear to my heart because what we've done in the series, and this is the second to last show, by the way, what we've done in the series is we're talking to those individuals for whom the pandemic has been more than a disruption. And a lot of you may have been in business, your companies are gone, or you're part of the great resignation and you're going, you know what? I'm not going back to the office. I don't got to do that stuff. Well, now, what are you going to do with yourself? And so, what we did in this series is we talked about consulting. And what is consulting really? Could you, in fact, start a consulting company? So, this is show 12 of 13, and we've gone through that process. Now, next week, I don't know what I'm going to do yet next week because I've kind of got ahead of myself in some of the shows. And when you write these show notes, you never know if this is too much or too little. So in a couple, I had too little and I just had to expand on it. So, okay, let's do the next show. I'll take you through all that. But today is kind of the wrap. And I'm going to give you a model that if you follow it and you make the decisions that it dictates, more than likely you're going to start successfully, given several caveats that will give you about what do you know, what practice areas you're going into. Okay. Way to start. You need to go to our website now. Our website is ibgr.network. But before you go there, let me explain all of that. IBGR is our call sign. We're just like a radio station. And any radio station you got around the world has call letters. And ours just happen to be ones that we picked rather than have in here in the United States. You have the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, who dictates what your alphabet soup is for your call sign, also dictates who, in fact, you can broadcast to and when you can and how powerful is your signal. And we don't have to put up with any of that noise. So the I stands for international. We're currently in 178 countries, and the UN recognizes 195. So that means we're in 90% of the countries around the world right now listening to us. Who's listening? Well, that's the BG of IBGR. That is business leaders, that's business owners, that's consultants, that is entrepreneurs, that's people in the gig economy. Fundamentally, anybody who's working for themselves or building a company 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What are we talking about? How to start, grow, or exit your business. And especially on the exit side, because I'm really happy to report we have got an expert on that coming in on season 7, which starts on October 4th, Michael Mitchell. And if you're thinking about selling your company and all the things that are required in that, Michael's the guy to talk to, because what does Michael do for a living? He does exactly that. Okay, so IBGR is our call sign. Oh, yeah, by the way, I forgot the R. The R of IBGR is radio, obviously. We run like a radio station, not like an internet radio station, but like a real radio station. And the only difference between us and them, as I said, I don't have to ask permission from the government to broadcast on a tower. I got the cable. All right, .network is our name, IBGR.network. Go to the website. When you get there, you'll see the navigation bar, and there have been a couple changes here over the last week. So go all the way to the end. You see resources, mouse over that, and that is a pull-down menu. When you do that, you'll see show notes. Now we are in the game. So click show notes, and when you do, if you're listening to us live, then you'll see CIB.12 or CIB.12. If, on the other hand, you're getting us later as a replay, or as a podcast, and you get to this page and you don't see this on the first page, back in the newspaper days, we would call above the fold, then here's what you need to do. Right next to that, you'll see new choice for business search. Put CIB.12. Creating an improvement, consulting and improvement business. The C is hidden in that. So it's kind of like some language where you don't pronounce C's. Certainly that's not German or Dutch, because, they love that because they get to go like that. Okay, so creating a consulting/improvement business, show number 12. And this one is called Putting It Together. Start here. All right, so whether you're seeing it there on the show notes page or you had to pull it up from the search. Now, here we go. I'm not going to read this to you, but it's kind of my opening shtick here. So, second to last show. And today I'm going to pull it together using highlights of the previous shows. If you need more in-depth information than I can cover here in the 48, 49 minutes we have together, you simply take a look at all of the other shows in the series. Now, one of the shows I'm going to highlight here because I want to talk about that particular item, and I didn't want to write it, so it's a link. But anything from CIB.01, show 1, to CIB.11, which was last week's show, will give you all of the background and the details of what we're talking about. In fact, last week's show was about as detailed as I can make it and do it in the audio medium. Now, that's why we have show notes. So if you want, cut and paste this, and it gives you what you need to know. Or you can just do a print off the page. All right, so my summary is my advice. That's where I'm going to here. Build out your practice to everything that is possible. In other words, think about all of the things that you can do and build out a practice like it's a $10 million consulting firm, and you've got all these product lines, you've got these service lines, you've got other consultants working for you either directly or through partners, and build it out that way. Then narrow it down to the highest probability account. In other words, I'm going to go after this particular industry, and here are the companies that I'm going to go after. If my focus is regional, then I'm going to look more regionally. If my focus is global, then I'm going to look from that direction. And then what is the singular offer that I can get started with them? And this is going to be my start. In fact, this is going to be my test. As it states in item 7, when we go down the page, the thing I want you to consider is that all startups are experiments. They're really not businesses. I don't think you're going to hear that in too many places. But the reality is you build a business around what is working. It is very difficult to build a business when there is nothing to work. And so we have kind of gone a different direction here at the network on this particular topic to say, design your company as if it was an experiment so that you can learn what it is that you need to know to build around. Now, where's the experiment? You got 3 things that you've got to do. You've got to figure out what markets are growing, what industries, and within that, what accounts do you want to target? Number 1. Number 2 is, what is their need, so that I can look in my bag of tricks, which we're going to talk about here, and pick out the product or service, but the offer that's going to match that need. All right, that's number 2. And then number 3 is I'm going to look at my timing. Now, typically we would say market timing in terms of when am I going to get into the market, but in this case, it's going to be much more finite. I'm going to be looking at the timing for this particular type of account. And I'll give you a quick example of that before I move on. If you're selling to a smaller business, then timing is less of an issue, other than, is the pain enough right now for them? And that's going to only come about by doing investigative calling. When you're cold calling, one of the first things you're going to try to establish is, where are the pain points and does it hurt enough? If you're selling to corporations or to government, then it's a little bit different because, for example, government, if you want government money, you need to start selling June, July, and maybe early August. But if you get in after August, you're going to miss it because the federal government is on a different budgeting cycle. Come October, they have already set their budget and have allocated their funds. So if you go in November, December trying to sell something to the government, they're going to be telling you they don't have any budget. That doesn't mean they don't have money. It just means they don't have budget for you right now. So if that's the case, I want to start in the spring, early summer, selling to government, so that what happens is that when they are asked to put their budget together, anywhere from late July through the month of August, and they send that budget up for approval, my offer, my services are part of what they're requesting. The timing on corporations is typically, and the IRS now is enforcing this, is the calendar year. And so, for example, if you were going to sell to government and large corporations, then through the early summer into, say, August, your focus is government. Right after that, then go after the larger corporations, which is what we used to do. And when I go after the larger corporations, I want to start talking to them in August, maybe September, because I want to do the same thing. I want to get on their budget schedule. And so when they allocate money, come January, they've got money to spend. Because if I don't do that and I say, oh, well, you know what? I show up in January, I want to sell something, they're going to tell you, not that they don't have any money, they just don't have any money for you. Smaller businesses, that's probably seasonal. And you want to look at your offer in terms of how it affects the seasonality of their business. like landscaping. So those are the things that you got to work out. And that's the experiment that you're going to create in the business. When you find out what works, then you start building other stuff, which we will talk about. All right, so let me see here. Your first goal, yep, is do only one thing that matters until you've achieved it. One thing, the one type of account, work it until you're successful at selling it. Now you can move on to other things. All right, so remember, never forget, is your consulting startup is just like any other startup, and what you're seeking to determine is you need to be right at the right time, which is a different way of saying what I just said. All right, so topics. What are we going to cover here? All right, so one is I'm already kind of drilling on this, and when we go down the action list, I will come back to it. All startups are, in fact, experiments. So if you are going to go consult to small business in the startup mode, and what do we mean by startup? We mean anybody who has either not opened their doors yet, or they're in the strategic phase and they're trying to figure out what they're going to sell, or they've just opened their doors and they started selling. That would represent a startup, and you can help them, because I will assure you that if you're thinking this way, you may run into one of 1,000 people who are having the same thought. Now, when you tell them that, you're going to answer a lot of questions, because one of the things that they're told, well, we got to build infrastructure, we got to build processes, we got to do this. Well, why build a process, if the product or offer doesn't sell? Okay, because if you do that, you may have to scrap whatever you built and do it over. You don't have the time and money for it. Okay. Number two is I'm going to give you a stepwise process, which is really what we've done over the weeks. Please understand, it looks linear. It's got to be presented linear. It isn't linear. Is that it's iterative, is that you go through a couple steps and you'll cycle back, because you'll come to a different conclusion. And therefore, what you're going to do is say, I have a better definition. So, for example, you've worked your way down and you've decided that this is the right accounts, the timing is good, here's the offer. And it's based upon work you did previously. So this is not like you put your finger to the air and say, hey, which way is the wind blowing? You could be wrong. Okay, let's go back then and say, why didn't that sell? Who could we sell it to? Or if we want this account, how do we have to reshape the offer? So it looks linear as I go through it. It is not. Number three, follow the steps for the highest probability of initial success. Now, I'm just going to tell you that I have built 5 consulting companies. Now, this one is a little bit different, but the two that really worked is that this was the script that we used. This is how we put it together. Would other ways work? Yeah, it probably would, but then go listen to those people, because I don't know what it is. This is what has worked for us, and the times it's failed is we violated it. All right, now, so insights. Sitting here preparing for the show, as I was doing this morning, I wish I had some additional words of wisdom to convey that I haven't talked about in shows 1 through 11. I really don't. As you embark on a consulting career, my thoughts really do go back to show number 2, in that, kind of like a doctor, there is a Hippocratic oath that I believe that all consultants have to follow. And the smaller the company you work with, the more critical this oath is. And I'm going to take you through it. There's a hot link on the page if you're looking at the show notes. And for those people that just join me, you need to get the show notes. Go to ibgr.network. When you get there, you'll see the navigation bar. All the way on the right side, you'll see resources. That's mouse over that. It's just pull down. You'll see show notes. Click it. This is CIB.12. All right. Now, the Hippocratic Oath is critical, because what it really spells out for you is your whole approach. Hippocrates was what is considered the father of all doctors and surgeons, a Greek, and he put together an oath that doctors to this day follow. I modified it a little bit to fit the consulting world, but in many cases, it is very, very compatible. So let me take you through my little Hippocratic Oath for consulting, based upon years and years and years of doing this. All right, so if you want to follow along, you can click and go there, or you can look on the search page, CIB.02. Roles and the Oath is the name of the show. And as I scroll down, got a couple roles here we will talk about later in the show. But then you go down to the unconsulted Hippocratic Oath. By the way, if you go to my website, williameastman.us, you'll see right there, pasted across the top, almost over my face, it says the unconsulted. I consider myself an unconsulted because most of them I know I wouldn't hire. We'll put it that way. All right, so here we go. First one, right from Hippocrates: do no harm. During the project planning phase, it is critical to make the major risks known to the client and its leading indicators. And what that means is, as you look at this, you can say, okay, if it fails, what are the risks? Even if it works, what are the risks? And then the indicators are, what are the things that we will see if, in fact, that is occurring? All right. And your project plan that you put together, because with all accounts, you're going to put together a project plan. It's not going to be a matter of they hire you and you're going to show up tomorrow. Not a good way to do business. So your project plan must mitigate that. In other words, you must address risk and indicators in there, because more than likely in the process of a consulting gig, you are going to do a reset. You may actually do 2 or 3 where you get to a certain point and go, okay, we got to rethink what we're doing. You can only be so smart at the beginning. You don't have a ton of time to do the type of research and analysis that you probably would want to do. They won't pay for it. They won't put up with it. They won't give you the answers that you need. So you do the best you can. And I'm definitely saying you need to do your homework before you go in, but recognize that you don't know everything. And in many cases, they don't know everything. All right. And you have to have a backup plan until in case it doesn't work. Now, the other thing here is to understand is that you are not here to give them advice, right? Or let me change that. Better way of saying that. You're not here to tell them what to do. What you're here to do is to say, okay, we're here. Here are the options that are available. Here are the risks. Here are the indicators. All right. Now, what do you want to do? See, you don't have any skin in the game. You blow their company up, and guess what happens? They don't pay you. All right. Well, that's going to hurt. If you're getting paid month to month, it's going to hurt. On the other hand, they're out of business. And so you really got to be careful about this. I don't give advice in that way. I look at options, give them the ramifications of those options, help them select the one that they want, make sure that they're clear on the risk involved. And then we make sure that we measure what the indicators may be. So as soon as it's clear that this wasn't a better choice, then we will be able to fix it. Number 2, you are hired to be fired. This is not a job. You're not there to be there for any period of time. If you're going to a consulting gig and what you're doing is looking for a job, get out of the consulting business. You're not going to give them the help they need. And the other issue with you're hired to be fired is that business owners are surrounded with people, for the most part, who will tell them what they want to hear. Certainly true in the corporate world. I mean, they got tons of people hanging out, all wanting to tell the boss what the boss wants to hear. You get hired to tell the truth. If you tell the truth, there are days that's going to cost you your job. If you can't tell the truth, don't be a consultant. That's why you might want to get a down payment up front and have something like a 60-day clause in there. So if they fire you, they still got to pay you for a month or two, something like that. And really what that is protection for you. And I told accounts that, because I've said to a couple, I'm going to tell you things that you don't like. I'm going to take the risk you're going to fire me. And if that's the case, you fire me, I can't go get a gig tomorrow because my sales cycle is 60 or 90 days. That's why that provision is in there. So you get hired to get fired. Keep that in mind. Tell the truth. Number 3, you can't care more than they care. This is the one that drives most consultants nuts. You get hired to do something, and then they seem to slow walk the whole project. And you go crazy trying to push them to do what they ought to do, they've agreed to do, but now they don't want to do. And this is a conversation, this kind of goes back to number 2, where you go to the owner. And I've said a couple times to people, you know what? Why don't we stop this project? You take some of the money you're going to pay me. Let's have a beer party, roast a pig, and have some fun. Because you know what? This is a waste of time, mine and yours. And you need to be that way sometimes with the owners. Now, some owners, are going to laugh at that. and some are going to get kind of ruffled. You got to know who you're talking to. But basically, you can't care more than they care. And if you get the sense they don't care enough for this to be successful, this is an albatross that's going to get hung around your neck because they won't do their jobs. Get out of there. Number 4, treat client money like your own. For example, the client's paying travel per diem. Don't stay in the most expensive hotels. Don't buy expensive food. Treat that money as if it's your money. Trust me, if you don't think they pay attention to your expenses, you haven't seen anything yet. And what I used to do is I would do fixed cost on expenses, and I would get the expenses advanced. In other words, at the beginning of the month, they would pay all of my expenses, and at the end of the month, they would pay me for the services delivered. And what I would get paid for was not a ton of money. Now, I can't give you an exact dollar figure because it depends upon, for example, I had a client in Atlanta and I had to drive down to Atlanta. We couldn't fly because it was cost prohibitive for the client. So now I'm eating up a day of my time. So there's 2 days I can't work because I'm basically in transit. We're saving them money. And so what I did is I put together a proposal and said, you're going to pay me X at the beginning of the month. I'm going to travel on that. You don't have to pay me anything. You're not going to play with receipts. And it's up to me. If I got a couple dollars left over, don't get annoyed. Number 5, model the process. Whatever it is that you're doing, you must be it. And this is tough. This is really tough. But you got to do it because they're going to be looking for any inconsistencies. If what you're doing within the account is going to require significant amount of change, they're going to be looking for any excuse to not do it. And until it's proven that it's going to work, they're going to get out of it any way that they can possibly get out of it. And so I have to make sure that if it's a customer service thing and I'm helping them with their customer service, I better be whatever we trained them on customer service. If it's manufacturing and we're going to something like lean and we're trying to lean up the process, I got to run my operation on the same principles. Clients like consultants who eat their own dog food, and they dislike consultants that don't because it kills your credibility. Number 6, they must know what we know or you know. Your job is a technology transfer. You do not want the client dependent upon you to come back and fix this problem or another problem that looks the same, that uses the same process. What you want to do is a brain transplant. You want to move what you know into their heads. Now, will this cost you long-term business? Sometimes it will, because next time they have a problem, they'll handle it themselves. And maybe they call you a couple of times to get a couple pointers. They forgot stuff. But on the other hand, if it's a little bit larger account, guess what happens? They got another problem. Who do they call first? They call you. And then you got the option of basically taking the business if you can take it, or you can help recommend somebody else or help them search for somebody else. But whatever you know must be transferred to them. Otherwise, you've got a lopsided relationship. And then the last one, the relationship's never over. I don't care if you're out of the account. You need to come back and be checking on them. And maybe it's every 6 months you call the owner and say, hey, or whoever your champion in a larger corporation is, you call them, how's things going? Are you having any problem with what we've done? And you're doing 2 things, really. Number 1 is if there's something that you need to fix, you can come back and say, okay, let me give you a hand with that, no charge or over the phone. But also what you're doing is, what are you fishing for? Upsell. Is that they'll be going, we were thinking about you. We got this issue. Da, 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 da. Suddenly you have that other opportunity. Now, so that's the Hippocratic Oath. I find that if you make this how you run your consulting firm, regardless of what you offer, you're going to be far more successful than not. And I didn't get this from anybody. I just came up with it over the years. And this is what when we would bring in new consultants into our consulting firm, because I was in a role of managing partner. So I was doing a lot more project management than I was doing actual delivery and accounts, is that this is kind of a mantra that I'm not going to say memorize, but let's just say they live by it. All right, I'm going back now to our show notes today, which is CIB.12. And if you go down to the bottom of the page, because I got a couple minutes left here, a couple things I want to talk about. If, in fact, you're interested in starting a consulting firm and you'd like to get some assistance on that, love to help. I love the industry. I don't want to do it anymore, but I love the industry. And so whether you're a Facebook person or a LinkedIn person, go to our business page. Start there. Now, on the show notes, you'll see a link for Facebook group and LinkedIn group. So that'll take you to the right page. Facebook is IBGR Network. That's our handle. No period or decimal point. LinkedIn, exactly the same handle. So if you love Facebook, go to Facebook. You like LinkedIn, go to LinkedIn. When you get there, you'll have the opportunity to join a private group. On the Facebook side, it is Build My Business Today. I keep getting the pronouns mixed up. If you're reading this, it's building your business today. I'm not building my business today. Well, I guess I am. All right. You can join that private group. And now what will happen here is the tools, applications, actions that we talk about on the air are all possible for you to get. We're not going to give them out to just anybody because I need to know whether or not they're going to work for you. And LinkedIn, same deal, except that group is the IBGR Growth Community. Either way, you go in one of those groups, you let me know that you would like to get more materials or help or support on consulting, then I'll be there for you. Now, below that, where it says to download the mobile app, I'm going to come back to that after the break. But below there, you'll see a comment section. The other way that you can get on my calendar is to put a comment down there and just make sure that you give me enough information, an email address, so I can get back to you. All right. And the mobile app, I'm going to save because imagine if you had everything that we have the ability to do on your mobile device, on your phone. That's what we're providing. But let's close this out. You're listening to the IBGR Network and the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. I'm the host for today's show. This series is on creating a consulting/improvement business. And I said it that way because I don't want to exclude people who are in the coaching or training business. And today's show is putting it all together. What we've done over 11 shows, we're finishing right now. So with that, don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still on the air. I'm getting slacked, which is our staff communication system. And so I'm just dealing with a couple issues here because as I'm on the air, which is my working in the business, we still have a business to run here. So that's the first segment. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to come back and we're only going to be talking about the action steps. And again, this is a review of what we've done. I think it's enough detail that if you've never seen it before, it's understandable. And if you want more information, there are 11 shows, 11 sets of show notes that cover all of this. Other than that, I really think that consulting may be the great business for you to go into if the pandemic, as I said in the opening piece, if the pandemic has really put you out of business, then this is a place to go because don't think that this pandemic is over or don't think that something like this is not all over. Get ready for some tough times here for the remainder of the decade. And so the more that you are in a business where you're self-reliant and you're in a business where you can build a platform, because we're going to talk a lot about how to do consulting or coaching or training virtually. Part of that's platform, but part of that's how you design stuff. Because you could build a global consulting practice and never leave your office, the dining room table, wherever it is that you're working from. And if you've got any feedback for us, I'd appreciate that because one of the things that we are thinking about doing is creating a consulting practice for consultants. I don't know whether that would be franchise or whatever. Okay, just don't know yet. All right, so here's let's rock and roll here. 3, 2. And we're back. You're listening to IBGR, the International Business Growth Radio Network. My name is William Eastman. I am the host for today's show. This is show or podcast, depending on how you're getting the signal. Well, it's not really a signal. It's coming over cable. Yeah, it is. It's instead of being a sine wave, kind of thing going through the air, it is a pulse of light. All right, this is CIB.12, and that stands for creating a consulting slash improvement business. And this is the 12th show in the series. You need to go to the website, ibgr.network. That is ibgr.network. When you get there, you'll see the navigation bar that goes from left to right. If you go all the way to the right, you'll see resources. Mouse over that. There's a pull down menu, hit show notes. And then when you get to show notes, CIB.12 is what you want. If you're getting here late in terms of a replay a couple days from now or a podcast, then the smart move would be right next to where the show notes are. In fact, on just about every page here at IBGR is new choice of business search. Put in CIB.12 and up it will pop. All right. So what did we do in the second segment? Well, what are we going to do in the second segment is first talk about what we did in the first segment. I did an overview. I provided some pearls of wisdom, so to speak, from my 4 decades in the business. And so if you want a lot of that information, you're going to need to listen to the first half of this. This is 2 podcasts, 2 shows. We break it about 30-minute point, and you're going to need to go back to that. Now, the topics I'm covering today is all startups are experiments. Done that. The process appears to be linear. It isn't. I'm going to take you through the process. Number 3, follow the steps for the highest probability for initial success. The other thing that we did is the Hippocratic Oath for consulting, or as I call myself, the unconsultant. If you want to get that, it's on the show notes. There's a hot link to CIB.02. All right, let's scroll down and let's get down to action. Let's take action now. Enough talking. So I went through all of my notes before I produced this series, and then I looked at the series. So this does not follow exactly CIB 1 through 11 in that particular order, but it's pretty close. And so this is how my brain is working right now, and that's typically what I do on the air. So number 1, select a practice area. And we did this in show 2. We did this in show 3. And what that is about is I shared with you what is the industry standard for consulting. I have friends who produce a report. I can't give you the name of it because they're nice to me and they give it to me for free. And I don't have to spend, and I'm sure the price tag's up to 10 grand now. It comes out every year. It looks at all the big consulting houses. And what it talks about is that there are practice areas and domains within the practice area. And the reason you want to review that is if you're going to consult, what are you going to consult on? I mean, it's like an attorney. You're not going to go out and hang out on a shingle and say attorney at law, and that's it. I mean, are you a criminal attorney? That's quite different than being a corporate attorney or being I was going to say ambulance chaser, but somebody who deals in, that type of litigation. And so it's different in law and being a lawyer in terms of what practice areas you have. It's exactly the same thing in consulting. Now, let's see how good my memory is. There's strategy and OD, which is where I made my bones, most of them. There's operations management, how processes run. I made my bones there. There's HR. Well, I spent some time in that one. There's IT, which I've danced around and I've watched, but I haven't done. There is marketing, sales, and service. I've done a little marketing, but not a great deal. There's human resources, where I already talked about that. Which one I leave? Oh, yeah, finance. And finance I haven't touched. So those are the major practice areas. And then underneath all of those, they have anywhere from 3 to maybe 6 domains. In some cases, you can pick one out and focus on just that one and make a living, make a great practice on one area. In other cases, you're going to have to put 2 or 3 together in order to make a practice. Now, how do you make that decision? Well, the second thing here is if you don't have any expertise in it, you really can't practice it. And I used to make a living killing McKinsey and KPMG and all those other guys because what they would do, they would come into an account and they would bring one of the big dogs, one of the consulting partners, managing partners. And then as soon as you purchased it, you'd never see that character again. And they would slip in some, fresh out of MBA school person in there. and the way we used to beat these people up, it used to be just so much fun, is that if I was the managing partner on the account, you got me. Now, you didn't get me for everything, but there was no bait and switch. Why? Because I had the experience. I took an account away from Mackenzie because it was really not nice of me, but I wasn't feeling nice that day. I don't know what it was, but I had a young woman who was probably 26, 27, and she went to a prestigious school. She just got out of Princeton with an MBA. And I just looked at her and looked at the client and said, I'm sure she's incredibly intelligent and knows a great deal. But how many of these have you done? And you could see her face kind of get ashen. And it was like, this is my second one. I said, well, I've been doing this for 15 years. Guess who got the account? And I tell you what, when you take on one of the big guys and you beat them, it's kind of like a good day. So your expertise matters. Now, if you're going to corporate consulting, the thing I'll add to this is you must be degreed. If you've got a master's degree in what you want to consult in, that's fine. PhD works better, but a master's degree is kind of how you get in the door. You got a bachelor's degree, that doesn't cut it in the corporate world. Now, with business owners, they may be impressed with that stuff, but don't bet on it. They're going to want to know where have you been? Where have you got dirty? What experience do you have? So expertise to me is what matters unless you're going to the corporate consulting. Okay, now, once you've done that, then number two is you got to select a consulting model. Now, there's a range of possibilities, and I'm kind of giving you the ends of the continuum, but fundamentally, you have two types of consulting companies. One that sells subject matter experts and one that sells assets, right? I'll take the assets second. Subject matter experts. What you're doing here is you're selling time. In your case, your time. Large corporations, you can pull this off. You can charge typically, if you've got the background track record, you can typically charge anywhere from $2,000 to about $4,000 a day for your consulting services. Nice work if you can get it. But on the other hand, is that means you physically have to do it. Now, with Zoom or StreamYard or some of the other packages, physically can be virtually, but here's the deal. You got to invest the hours. So the limitation it has on your practice is there are 2,080 hours in a year, right? So let me give you the math on this. And so 2,080 hours is what the year is worth. If you intend to work, and those are work hours. If you intend to work 2,080 hours all year, you're going to die. You're going to burn out. I don't care if you were Superman or Superwoman, it's going to burn you out. And so what we used to do is we had a rule that we had an applied rate by the month. And what the applied rate meant is that you as a consultant working for us had to be billing 75% of the month. So figure 15 days. Now, some of that could be back in your office working on stuff to take to the account, and some of those days will be on site. But 15 days is all you could do. You needed 5 days off. All right, so let's do the math. You get somebody working 15 days and you're charging $2,000. That's a pretty good month, isn't it? But that's all you can do. So what you have is the limitation here. When you sell hours, you are limited by the availability of the resources. The other problem with selling time is that time is a consumable commodity in that once it passes, it's gone. You cannot go to a client and say, hey, I'll give you half off of last week. They're going to think that you lost your mind. And so if you don't sell the next hour and the hour passes, it is forever gone. Now, the other one is selling assets. And by the way, selling time does not work in small businesses because they don't have enough money to pay you. And their theory is, and it's somewhat true, is you're going to drive up the hours. So now selling solutions and applications, what I call asset-based, and that is where you take what is in your head and you turn it into products. I put on here products plus. There is DIY products that they can use, and then the plus is you put services on top of it. Now, you can't get back to $2,000 a day if we use that as kind of a standard at the moment. But if you put it together intelligently, you can make pretty good money selling product plus services, and the customer doesn't know that they're paying you say $1,200 a day. So anyway, I'm saying to you is if you're going to consult the small businesses, then option number 2 is the one you got. The option number 1 is they don't have the money to pay you what you're worth. And if you told them, oh, I only charge $2,000 a day, well, if you solve their problem in a day, they may pay it. But most small business owners are going, well, how long did it take? And you go, 2 months. Done. It's done. It's over. Pack your bag, get in the car, drive to the next account. All right. Number 3. And by the way, we got this is in CIB 3 and 4, I believe. Number 3 is combine the practice area with your business model. So now that you've kind of said, okay, I'm going to go into strategy and OD, which is my background. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working on market research and positioning of companies around strategy. And positioning is pre-marketing. In other words, if you're going to market, this doesn't show up in the marketing practice area. It assumes that somebody's going to deliver to marketing this research. This is what you're going to do. So there's a number of areas in there, subdomains that I can do within that area. All right. So now, how am I going to build an asset base around that? Because I'm not going to be doing live consulting unless, of course, again, you're going after large corporations. So I'm going to go asset based, and I'm going to focus on strategy. That's where I'm headed. And a particular type of strategy might be doing the research and coming up with what we would call the strategic landscape. You can take a look at what's going on in the market, all of the pluses and minuses, and basically say to them, here is where your best market opportunities lie, and this is where I recommend you go. Okay. Now, the final part of that is really when you look at this is how do you intend to provide value to the customer? Now, if you're saying to yourself, how do I do a DIY on that? You're working with small business owners. So maybe you sell some marketing services to them. You got an account at Dun Bradstreet, Hoover's now. And so you have a subscription there. You can take a look at their industry. You can do research on it. You can find out who are the leaders. You can look at the numbers that are being posted. So you've got a good chance of looking at what costs are, what margins are. You can get a lot of information on there, and then you can do a comparison to them to say, okay, here's where the shortfall is. Here are the accounts that you could go after. And so you can get a lot of that information and give that to them. And then they kind of go through your product about how to put together a strategy. And so they can do that themselves. And then at the end of that, they present out what they have, you critique it, and you work with them to fix it. And you won't be able to charge as much as you would charge a large corporation, but you actually can make pretty good money doing that because it would have an excellent margin, because what the products will do is that they will improve your margins, even if you're selling them cheaply. Trust me, it works. That's how we ran a consulting firm where our gross margins, when we put all the margins together, were in the 40s in an industry where the gross margins are typically in the high 20s. All right, now, how do you monetize your practice? Now you got all this together. You say, okay, how is it that I'm going to make money? So let's get back to your role. Are you a consultant? Are you a trainer? Are you a subject matter expert? Are you coaching? Are you a virtual executive? They're all series of options that you have. A virtual executive would be that you take over a piece of the business. You're resident sometimes. You're not. You're virtually other times, and you're basically a part-time employee for the period of or duration of the project. Or you're just a subject matter expert, you're a facilitator, etc. What's your role? Number one. Number two is how do you take the products and services? And that's why I recommended at the beginning is you build the practice out like it will be when you get to $10 million. All right, now, so how do I want to combine those products and services together? How many of those products are standalones? How many of those products have services built on top of them? Now, what I want to do is I want to create a value ladder. And a value ladder is I want to now bundle those and create an offer. What you don't want to do is go to them with a menu that's got 50 items on it and saying, okay, let's go through and pick. Clients aren't smart enough about what you do to be able to pick the right thing. So you're going to bundle. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. I go to a restaurant, there's 50 items on the menu. One, it takes forever to order. And two, I'm thinking they can't make all those things that well. In fact, if I go to a restaurant with a huge menu, I ask what's today's special, because more than likely the chef has put some work into it, as opposed to going to a restaurant that serves three or four things. Unless I don't eat that stuff, I got a chance of getting a better meal. Same thing here. You're going to bundle it together or blend them so that there is, here is level one, level two, level three. Level one is your price leader. You want to get in the door. It's predominantly product based, and you're not going to lose any money on it. You may not make a great deal of margin, but you got money coming in the door. You're paying your overhead. You're getting to break even. That's all you want with a lot of level one sales is break even. And it gives you the opportunity to build a relationship, to get to know the accounts, and the opportunity to upsell. It's all about upsell. Your level two offer is your core offer. That is the essence of what you want to sell. If you could sell 100% of something, it's your core offer. Now, is it everything? No. You're going to leave a few things out. This is going to be everything that they need to be successful, period. Now, the add-ons and the goodies and all that goes to level three. And what level three is, if they bought the kitchen sink, what would it look like? You got everything in there. And the role of level three is to anchor level two pricing. In other words, I would price level three, not, I wouldn't go from, say, $5,000 for something for level two and $50,000 for level three. That's not too smart. But if I had a $5,000 offer at level two, my core offer, I might come in at $7,500, $8,000, $9,000, something like that at level three, because what it does is it makes the level two offer look good. Think about this: anytime you purchase software or you went on a platform, and they typically give you three offers, which one do you take? You usually take the middle one. You look at everything. You look at the basics on one. You go, yeah, I could get by on that. Then you look at number two, and you say, hey, that's pretty good. And you look at three, and you're like, wow, that's everything. Then you look at the price tag and go, I don't know if I can afford that. And typically that drives you back to two. So you've got to have that value ladder ready. And then finally, you're going to set initial pricing. What should I be pricing on these particular products and services? Pretty simple. Troll your competitors, see what they're charging. And because you've got your processes under control, which is not on this list, all right, you have to go to our Tuesday shows on operations management, like Crystal Davis would be one great choice for you. If you do that, then you can kind of come up with what is it going to cost to make it. But those are the four things that I've done time after time. And of course, I said at the beginning in the first half of this in the podcast, is that this looks, linear, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's iterative. By the time you get to number 4, you may be coming back to number 1 and 2 to recheck it, because you've come to kind of a different understanding. All right, number 5. Once I've got it together and I know what I'm selling, now what is the channels? So see where we are right here. You know who you're going to sell to. You know what you want to sell. You've bundled it in a way that you've got several attractive offers that give you the opportunity to get in the door or sell the essence of what you want to do and anchor that, and also gives you the opportunity to upsell because you only have one level of offer and they like it. What else do you sell them? Now what I have to do is I say, okay, now what is the best way to go to them? Now I could have put on email and I could have put a bunch of stuff on here, SEO, your website, and all that stuff. Now it's there, but let's go this way. One is direct. I'm going to them direct. I'm going to be going to them in a direct fashion, and it's me and them. 2, third party. I'm going to partner. Now, this happens a lot in the consulting business because, for example, in HR, if my memory serves me correctly, in HR, some of the domains and subdomains have to do with employee assistance. So under kind of this heading, you have things like payroll processing, bonus programs. You have employee assistance programs, drug and alcohol. You have things of that nature. Now, let's just say that you're an expert in counseling people who have substance abuse problems, but you don't have the size of company to really run an employee assistance program, an EAP, which is a kind of a call-in 24 hours. So now maybe you partner with somebody else on that. So you can do a third party, and I'd recommend a third party is a good way to start. If you really want to figure out whether you got a working model, that's the way to go. And then the third one is basically you're going out to the universe, social media, SEO, all of that, and then see what traffic comes to you. But I think in this particular case is that you've got to be very, very active and not passive in selling your consulting services. The phone ain't going to ring. In all the years that I've been in the business, I can tell you right now, the phone did not ring very often. And when it rung, it was a customer we already had. We had to go out and go get the business. Now, the other thing I would say on that, just as kind of an aside, is we did a couple of things. One was we would look at the industries that covered our practices. And we would say, we need a marquee account. So think about this like a mall back in the day when malls worked, is for a mall to really be successful, it needs 2 or 3 anchor stores. You put a Nordstrom at one end, you put a Macy's at the other, which will draw traffic in because the smaller vendors in there don't have really the wherewithal to do the marketing, even if they're a company store like GNC or Lane Bryant or things of that nature. That it's the anchor stores that bring in the foot traffic. So when somebody's walking by your Foot Locker store that you are the owner of, or you've owned the franchise, they're going to come in and stop in, but they're not going to come to you usually unless they're an existing customer directly. And so what I want to do here with this is I want to make sure that I cover all of the major industries. And I used to tell the sales force, I can remember having a conversation that, and I know this will date me, but back in the early 90s, the hottest company in the United States was America Online because they were defining what online was. Online didn't exist really until America Online because they made it easy for you to get access. And I told the sales force, I don't care what you got to do. I don't care. I don't care if we got to give money away. I want a sales call at AOL because I looked at our portfolio. We had General Motors, so manufacturing we had covered. We had, at the time, it was just Glaxo, and then became Glaxo Wellcome. Now it's GlaxoSmithKline. We had a pharmaceutical company. We had, I hate to say this, we had Kmart. So we had a discount retailer, which is a contract we didn't renew, by the way. When we get inside of that place, we went, oh, these people are nutso, and it's going down, and I'm not going to be on the ship because at that point we had no influence over it. But you see the point I'm making is that we looked at the industries and said we need to have an account in each one of those. The second thing we would do, now AOL was, we went after AOL simply because they were the biggest thing and they were hot, and there's great publicity of getting them as a client, great press release. But we would typically, when we looked at the other industries, we would look for companies that were number 2 or number 3 and hungry. They want to take out the big dog. And those are the companies that were interested if we said, look, we're here to improve your competitive advantage, which is ultimately what you do if you're a business consultant, so that you can take out the big guys. And it typically sells real well. All right, the next one we're talking about is the issue of platforms. And this is pretty important. And a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, this was hard to sell clients on. You know what? I'm not going to show up. I'm going to do a Zoom call. I can think about the clients that I had. And so delivering your services one-on-one and virtually is what platforms you're going to use. Clients I had weren't going to go for virtual. Now today, everybody's conditioned on it. And I'm looking at the clock. So number 7, if you're going to focus on startups, understand is that they are experiments and you got to set them up as an experiment. Number 8, if you're looking at clients for growth and they're looking for acceleration, it is typically a scalability issue, and you better be good at processes, right? And then number 9, if you're doing turnaround, which, by the way, we did last week. And so if you're good at turnarounds, which is basically the client's company is a zombie, then it's how do you have a great analysis technique to come in and triage early, and then how good are you at going after cost? Here is an absolute given in a turnaround. If you go after revenue first, you'll put them out of business because more money coming in with bad margins is not good money. You need to unburden the money that's coming in. So your goal here on a company that's a zombie is, can you make them profitable at their current revenue number? Now let's go after revenue. Okay. And then finally, create the business operational plan. And what you need to do is you really need to sit down and do a yearly a quarterly and monthly plan of attack to drive your behavior. So you're not getting up in the morning going, what am I going to do today? You've got a list of things you've got to do. And then that gets to managing your time. Probably the most difficult thing, if this is your first time as an entrepreneur, regardless of whether you're in consulting or anything else, is managing your time. There's nobody to whack you. Nobody's going to come along and say, you didn't get that done. Well, the client will, they'll fire you. But in this particular case, if you're going to have, you need to have a plan and then manage your time to where executing the plan is in fact all you do. All right, now at the bottom of the page, as I said, Facebook to LinkedIn, you go to the groups, IBGR Network, no decimal point, period. That'll take you there. Join our groups, our private groups. If you're looking to start a consulting firm, you also can, below here, put in comments if you'd like some assistance. Now, the last one is the mobile app, and the mobile app is killer. That's a link to our page. It's called ibgr.app, app. And right there is a button for Apple, and there's a button for Google. Or you can go to the Apple Store or the Google Store, Google Play. How do you work it? Real simple. IBGR or Business Growth Radio are the two things that will find the app. You load it, and what do you have in the palm of your hand? You have solutions on demand. What that means is you want to listen to the show, you listen to the show. You want to listen to a rebroadcast, you want to listen to a podcast, you want to read the show notes, you want to search our database of over 2,300 pages of show notes. You know, like you'd like a second opinion, it's all there for you. Download that app. Probably the best thing we've built in a long time. All right, I greatly appreciate you being with me. Next week, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this up. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but it's going to be fun. And so this is William Eastman signing off. This is CIB, or Creating a Consulting/Improvement Business, show number 12 in a series of 13. And today's show is Putting It Together. Start here. You want to talk to me? LinkedIn, Facebook, IBGR Network. I'll meet you there. And with that, have yourself a great day and go nowhere, because we're just knocking it down. I'm going to be followed by Crystal Davis talking about operations. Take care. Okay, people on StreamYard or whatever, people on Facebook or LinkedIn. So that's kind of it. I think I riffed a little bit too much in the middle and got kind of rushed at the end, but hey, what can you say? It's all there. You want help, you want assistance, it is very simple. Now, the other thing I can tell you, send me an email. And that's programming with 2 M's at ibgr.network. If you're interested in becoming a consultant, you want to start a consulting company, or you got some general questions about any of the shows that we've done in the series, programming at ibgr.network will get you there. And with that, I got to sign off, because guess what I get to do this afternoon? Sales calls. I got to get back on the phone. Ciao.